Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to build a Dolby Atmos home theater in any room. So I often see on the forums comments like this: I'm building a home theater, I can't do in-ceiling, or I can't do height channels, or I can't do Atmos speakers, but I want to build a home theater with bed layer speakers. And very often the reasons that these people give for why they can't do height channels is either the ceiling in the room has a pitch, and so they can't, if they put in-ceiling speakers in there, they would just be pointed at the walls, or maybe it's in an area where the ceiling is already sealed off. So like it's in a basement, the sheetrock's up and the ceiling's already closed off. They can't fit an in-ceiling speaker into there. Or maybe it's in a place where they can't run speaker wire up to the ceiling, through the walls or up through the attic. They don't want to be climbing around in an attic. Anyways, there's a lot of reasons people give for why they're unable to install height channels, Atmos speakers, in their home theater. And today we're going to be talking about ways that you can put in height speakers in pretty much any room. And the secret is bookshelf speakers. Now, very often, for whatever reason, people have got in their mind that height channels or Atmos speakers have to be round in-ceiling speakers. This is not true. A speaker is a speaker is a speaker. You can use any speaker, essentially any speaker can be used for a height channel. What defines a height channel is just where it's placed, which is above your head. So any speaker that you can position above your head can be used as a height channel. And what we're going to talk about today is how to use specifically bookshelf speakers. Now, these are very, very handy where you're in a position where you're not able to install an in-ceiling speaker, or you could install an in-ceiling speaker, but it doesn't make sense because of where it would be positioned relative to the main listening position. And I'll explain that right now. In my home theater, I have 4 Atmos speakers above my head. 2 are right here, basically right above the main listening position. And the other 2 are forward of the main listening position. Now, the 2 that are directly over my head are in-ceiling speakers. They're installed, they're the conventional round in-ceiling speakers that you would imagine that people picture when they think of Atmos speakers. And that's what I have right there. But the 2 that are forward of the main listening position are actually bookshelf speakers. They were not designed to be Atmos speakers, but they work fantastic. In fact, because of where they're positioned, because they're forward of the main listening position, I use bookshelf speakers there because they actually work better than in-ceiling speakers. I used to have in-ceiling speakers in those locations, but after running some test measurements, I determined that a broad spectrum of the frequency range was not actually making it to the main listening position because I am off axis. The sound was basically just going straight from the ceiling down to the floor, and most of it was not even making it to the main listening position. So after running those tests, I determined that those in-ceiling speakers had to go, and I had to replace them with bookshelf speakers that could then be directed directly at the main listening position. So now that we've established that any speaker can be used as a height channel, how do we use bookshelf speakers? Well, you have to mount them to the ceiling. And this is a little bit tricky because I did a lot of research on finding a speaker mount that would work with the speakers that I wanted. And what I was imagining was a bracket that would bolt to the ceiling and then have some sort of like arms or some sort of structure that would then cradle the speaker and hold on to it. Maybe such a thing exists, but I was unable to find it. But what I did find is that there are speaker mounts that mount to the ceiling, and then they have a plate. And the plate, the way you attach that plate to the speaker is you actually drill into the speaker. Now, this is a little bit tricky, but don't worry, it works if you're careful. So the first thing you have to do is you get the speaker, and then you remove the back speaker binding plate so that you can look inside of the speaker. And this does two things. So you remove it, and then you look inside the speaker. And the first thing is you can then measure the thickness of the speaker cabinet wall. So you can find screws that will not penetrate into the speaker cavity. And then the second thing is to make sure you can look inside and see where you'll be mounting the plate to. You make sure that there's nothing directly on the other side of that inside the speaker, that if by chance the screws do go through, it won't touch anything or damage any of the equipment that's inside the speaker. So if the screws do go through, it's not the end of the world. And the way you make sure that it still works is you use some Gorilla Glue. This is what I used. I used just a dab of Gorilla Glue around the screw so that when I screwed the screw in, the Gorilla Glue, as it dries, it expands and it seals around the screw so no sound actually goes through the screw hole. Now, the other critical part is you put the plate down on the speaker where you want it to go, and then you mark the 4 spots where you're going to then install the screws, take the plate away, and then get a drill bit that is just slightly smaller than the screws that you'll be screwing in, and just drill in just a little bit, maybe just obviously not all the way through, but just drill in just a little bit to give your screw a starting point, and so it doesn't split the cabinet. And the other thing you can do once you have those holes is then you can use a toothpick with the Gorilla Glue, and you just put a little dab in there. It doesn't take much because, like I said, it expands. So just a little dab of Gorilla Glue in those holes, and then you just drill the screws directly in, and then you've got the plate mounted to the speaker. And then once you've got that, then you can install the mount to the ceiling, and you've got height speakers. Now, the second reason why people often say they can't run speakers to the height positions is because the room is already sheetrocked in and they can't run speaker wire up through the walls, which is very often the case. That is true. But there is a workaround to get speaker wire up to those height channels. You can use what's called a cable raceway. It's just a channel. I have them running up here to my side speakers, actually. And you run the cable through the raceway, and you just tuck the cable in there, and that kind of hides the cable. You can still see the raceway, but most of them are designed so that you can paint them if you want, so that you can get them in white or black. And you can paint them the same color as your walls and ceiling. And so they'll still be visible, but it's really not a big deal, especially if you get a small one. Like my cable raceway, it's only like 3/4 of an inch wide. It's very, very narrow. It's very, very small. It doesn't really show up. And especially when you're watching a movie, they disappear. You don't see them at all. So it's perfect. So to recap, if you're going to install height speakers on your ceiling, it doesn't matter if the ceiling is pitched, or if it's already got sheetrock on it and you can't install in-ceiling speakers. Just use bookshelf speakers, and then you use cable raceway to run the speaker wire up to the speakers. And then you've got height speakers. If anybody has any questions, leave them in the comments. I am more than happy to give further details. If somebody has a specific challenge that they have in their room that they're struggling to figure out, hit me up in the comments. I'll see if I might be able to point you in the right direction. Thanks for watching.